So I'll count it off.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3.
Just let's go.
1, 2, 3, go.
1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey folks, welcome back to the rehearsal room.
What's going on?
Nick here.
Aaron here.
This time around, we are going to explore something a little different. In the news, as of this recording, Ozzy Osbourne, everyone's favorite bat eater, has announced he will be performing one or a few more shows. I don't even know.
I think it's one more show. I think it's just the one show.
Okay.
But even that's go ahead.
Yeah, so it's going to be a final performance with Black Sabbath in England somewhere, and that had me thinking, Ozzy's like 1,000 years old at this point. Him going out there with Parkinson's and it being announced that he can't even walk, and
announce he's only doing bits and pieces.
bits and pieces.
Whatever that means.
Yeah.
I hope it's not the song. I hope it just means parts of Black Sabbath.
So, that kind of had me thinking, what do we want from our performers or entertainers? Do we want them to burn out till they can't give any more, or would we rather see them kind of fade off and, ride into the sunset on a glorious high? Because, there's a bunch of older acts out there that I know we all, or a lot of people, enjoy still seeing.
Absolutely.
But do we really want to see them all wrinkly and with fucking walkers and shit like that?
Well, remember the old joke of the Stones when they had the steel wheel tour, and everybody made the joke of the wheels were going to be steel because they're going to be fucking putting them in wheelchairs and rolling them out there, and yet here they are.
Exactly, right? So, like, what do you think about this?
Look, the easy answer and the get out of jail free, so I don't actually have to have an opinion answer would be artists should be allowed to do whatever they'd like.
Of course, and that is the easy
answer.
answer.
I know we both agree, but I understand.
Yeah.
It's funny. Ozzy's a perfect example, quite frankly. I love Ozzy.
Yeah.
No Rest for the Wicked was the very first metal album I ever heard, and it completely changed my life in that moment I heard it. I love Ozzy. Always have. His albums up until No More Tears are a staple in what I listen to. Over the years, he's done a song with like Post Malone. He's done, backing vocals for this or that.
Yeah.
And people, oh my God. And I've always said over and over again, the man has earned the right. He can do whatever the hell he wants, as far as I'm concerned. Who he wants to record with, I think a lot of it is as he got older, it was like, I think his last album he did a song with Elton John. Well, He's a fucking huge Elton John fan.
Sure.
No, it's nothing I want to hear, but I get it. He's got
a
fucking wish list, and he's checking off the things. You know what I mean?
Pretty sure if the Beatles were still a thing, he'd be into doing a song with the Beatles.
Well, funny you say that. I just watched a video. I don't know when this was. He was pretty cognizant, so this was probably a while back, and maybe about 3 facelifts of Paul McCartney's. But it was him meeting Paul McCartney.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, it would be like you and I meeting Ozzy. I mean, that's how he looks. He didn't even know what to really say, and Paul could not have been nicer.
So Ozzy sounded probably normal, right? With the
oh yeah, right. He's like, oh, he must be nervous. Yeah, that's it, nerves. But yeah, obviously this is not the way I want to see him. Apropos of our couple episodes ago, he was put in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame last year. He did not perform. Mm-hmm. He was in a chair the entire time, a giant throne, and he yelled, they did Crazy Train, and he did the all of it, and that was it.
Yeah.
Sat there and watched it with Jack Black. It was sad. It hurt my heart because I realizing we're not going to have Ozzy for very much longer,
Right.
I will say, though, I'm always kind of surprised with our hatred of drugs as a country, and then you look at Ozzy and the guy from the Rolling Stones and Willie Nelson. It's like, I don't know, it might be, but
something to be said.
Yeah, maybe they're just so pickled. I don't know.
They're preserved.
Yeah, So yeah, it was one thing to hear Black Sabbath gets back together, especially because you go, oh wow, and they're bringing
Bill Ward.
Bill Ward,
Yeah.
which metal fans have always been like, it's never felt complete without him.
Right.
So great, you're bringing Bill Ward back, fantastic, and then
But even that,
well,
Bill Ward is ancient. right?
he is, but he can still play. I know he can. Again,
Well, isn't that one of the reasons? Well, I know it's one of the reasons they didn't bring him back the last time around.
and time after time, you could find plenty of people, even if they would go unnamed so as not to incur the wrath of a Sharon, were saying it was complete bullshit.
Right.
He can
Of
play.
course.
He can play his ass off. He's fine. The guy was doing radio shows. The guy, he's weirdly, he's still a guy who, to some degree, got a foot in the underground. He kind of knows what's going on in metal as opposed to the other three. Yeah, it is to say when it's just all these tiers of kind of like, oh, because you went, yay, with Bill Ward. Oh, only in England. Well, that makes sense. Oh, my God, look at the price of those tickets. And then, wait, Ozzy can barely stand. And wait, he's going to do bits and pieces. What the fuck are we doing?
Right.
Why do this at all?
Yeah.
And, I know the jokes have always been made, myself included. In a way, I'm not surprised because I think we all assumed, Sharon would prop his corpse up if it made money. You know what I mean? And I know he loves Sharon, and I know she loves him.
And I know
but
he
she
also
is her
loves
father's daughter.
Right, but I know he also loves performing.
He does. Great point.
He's always said that. He
Always.
loves his fans.
He
and all this.
absolutely does.
But, I mean, at one point, don't you think somebody in that camp would be like, Ozzy, come on, guy.
I'm with you 100. I would relate this to sports in this way. There are very few athletes that know when to hang it up.
Yeah, yeah.
Jerry Rice being, for some, the greatest wide receiver, for others, the greatest football player to ever play the game.
Sure.
Did not retire as a Raider or as a 49er. He retired as the fourth string wide receiver on the Seattle Seahawks.
Oh.
That's when he went, oh, I can't make a team after 17 years in the league.
Yeah.
It's very hard for these guys. And I think somebody, as you pointed out, and a great point when it comes to Ozzy, he loves the adulation of his fans because he truly does love his fans. And I think he feeds off of that in a lot of ways. He wants to go out one last time, probably experiencing that, knowing that the end is near. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm with you. It's not how I want to see him. I want to always remember Ozzy as the guy jumping 50 feet in the air, clapping his hands, shooting a water soaker all over everybody.
Pissing himself on stage.
Absolutely. Snort those ants, baby. Here we go.
Yeah.
I don't disagree. I don't in that sense. It is sad to see because his motivation, if this is what his motivation is, I totally understand. And I don't want to stand in the way of that. But it is a bummer as a fan because that's not the lasting image I want to have of Ozzy.
And look,
Even seeing him with the gray hair is like, oh.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the last times I was able to see, that I did see a picture of him, I was like, holy shit.
Well, now
when did this happen?
I mean, they've dyed his hair now because he's going to be performing live. But like, there was a time they caught one of those, People magazines or whatever. I saw the picture where he's like crossing the street. I mean, it's completely, white and gray. Down to his ass. You're just like, whoa.
In a world that I would, I think, appreciate a little bit would be recognizing that Ozzy is old, that he can't perform the way he used to, and he's just going to live out the rest of his years a happy old man.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
He has grandchildren.
Yes, he does. Many.
So go be a grandpa. Right. Go be a grandpa, Ozzy. You gave us everything.
Everything.
You started it off for so many people.
Absolutely.
You gave us everything. You
Literally.
owe nothing.
You
owe nothing to us.
Nothing. That is a great point. It's, and it goes all over the place. It's like, look, if this, I think for a lot of it too is, as an artist gets older, are they still producing worthwhile art? You know what I mean?
This is another reason of why an artist or an entertainer would either choose to stop their, entertaining,
right,
or keep going on.
Yeah.
So another example here is Glenn Danzig.
Yeah, just recently.
He recently announced he's not going to record any new music. He already tours in incredibly limited fashions. Usually it's Danzig doing a set list that everybody knows from
Right.
start to finish.
Including Skin Carver, as he is obligated to do.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Or performing with the Misfits.
Yes.
There's no change in the songs or the set list.
No.
So we know what we're getting.
Yeah.
People want to see it, et cetera, et cetera. He's in his late 60s at this point. He said he's not going to record any new music, which, okay, maybe as much of a fan as you and I are.
Yes.
I personally have not enjoyed maybe the last couple of albums he's put out.
Yeah, I believe if the last one was the Black Laden, then
Black
yeah, I
Laden Crown,
definitely did not like that. The Elvis Sings, I think we both enjoyed that to a degree.
I didn't like the production.
No,
But that's another thing. Right? That's a whole other conversation.
That's an
that-
entirely different podcast.
which will be certainly a different episode of this. So
Yeah, no. Overall, I am with you. Yes, his albums. Most would say the first four. I would argue against that. I think he's made some after those four that have been very good. And
I can make a good songs compilation from everything after four up until whatever is after.
Yeah.
Like the 8 or 9, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Right?
I the one that ironically, the last one that I listened to actually isn't the one that has Skin Carver. It's the one after that. I very
Circle of Snakes.
No, Dead Wrath Sabathia.
Death
Breath. Yeah,
Dead
his whole.
Wrath
Yeah,
Sabal.
yeah. Like, just please come on. I don't want to have to learn a different language just so I can say your albums, Danzig. But yeah, that was the last one I enjoyed. Not every song, but I felt like it kind of was a return to form in certain ways that I very much enjoyed. After that, no, I have complete his covers album,
Which
did
is
nothing for me.
incredibly weird too, because he's a vocalist where his voice very audibly was suffering from something.
No doubt.
Right?
No doubt.
It went down in quality, and it's recorded.
Yes.
Unfortunately, like there's a timeline.
Yes.
Where it's great, and ooh, there's some
Yeah.
there's some hurt in there.
Yes.
Right. And live now, he sounds amazing.
He really does.
He sounds way better than he has on maybe easily his last 4 albums.
And good energy up there too. And again,
Good
this man is
energy.
in his 60s for
He's
fuck's
having
sake,
fun
man.
for sure,
Yeah.
But if he chooses to go out this way, I'm actually okay with this.
I will not be upset that he doesn't do another Juju Bone or anything like that. Yes, I am with you 110%. If he chooses to say, look, I'm just going to do live shows and play the songs that everybody loves and keep going, I get that. I do,
Sure.
and good for him, and I don't have a problem with that.
Now, the motives of why he's
Right.
stopping to do that's again a whole other can
Whole
of
other
worms.
can of worms, yes.
But if he reaches a point where he's like, I'm just gonna stop completely, because I know it's something he's threatened in the past.
Sure.
For like the past 15 years.
Sure.
But if one day he's just like, no, guys, for real, this is it.
Yeah.
For realsy reals, this is it.
Double dog.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like I'm all right with that.
Yeah.
Lemmy, right? He performed up until he was incredibly sick even on stage. He
Yeah.
was visibly sick, and then unfortunately he died.
I actually saw him. I don't know if it was his first appearance since, but I saw him with the Hepcats.
Headcat.
Sorry, yes. It took my breath away. I'm not a huge Lemmy guy, but yeah, he looked. But goddamn, he put on a show. But he had some help,
Yeah.
But he's another one. I think the love of playing is something that he just can't get out of him, no matter how sick he is. But please go ahead.
And
I'm
I know
sorry.
there's a bunch of like legacy bands out there playing still, and I know they have the energy and of course, the fan base that's
Sure,
going to still come
sure.
out to see them. But at some point, people got to stop, right?
Yeah, it makes you wonder. Look, it's funny you say, that I'm gonna stop completely. I've seen where the end. The only one that I can think of off the top of my head is that, sadly to me, because I'm such a fan, is Henry Rollins.
Yeah.
Now, the last few Henry Rollins band albums, I am not a fan of, but goddamn, do I think people are missing out not getting to see him live or getting to
agree.
hear
Yeah,
some
yeah.
new Rollins material. But he feels like he's done all that he wants to do. He has explicitly said he does not want to tour and be a karaoke machine.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, but and again, He can do whatever he wants. I thoroughly respect the man. I love him as an artist. I just think I know he doesn't care about money, and it's not about the money, but it is to say there's a lot of people who may be still getting into you right now who would love to see you live. And you talk about one of the great live performers. You know what I mean? And I just think like that bums me out to no degree. But I respect his decision. I totally understand why he's doing it, but it bums me out to no degree.
Here's another one. Slayer.
Yeah.
They called it quits, and now they're back. You know, and
because the off shows are, I imagine, pretty lucrative.
Of course, and I understand that.
I do
understand
too.
that people come up and show them a big paycheck or whatever, and of course that's gonna cash rules all, right?
Although others have denied it. ABBA, very famously, I think it was close to $1 billion to get them to reunite, and they said no, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, there are people with principle, right?
But with Slayer, yeah.
Tom Araya had an injured back, and that was one of the bigger complaints that he had,
right
about performing, because he couldn't rock out or whatever,
right.
And you're getting kind of not a second-rate Slayer, but a reduced version of Slayer.
Yeah.
And even like old punk bands, when you hear, the way they play their songs now as compared to before, it is a lot slower. They're taking their time, and
I got you.
I don't know. For me, it's kind of like, do I really want to see these?
I hear you. No, I think
this isn't a thing about like ageism.
No. I know exactly what you're saying. I think what matters to me in that way is your heart in it or is your wallet in it?
Yeah.
Now, there's nothing, again, we've talked about this on other podcasts. I have no problem with people making money. I want my bands to make money because I want them to continue to tour and I want them to continue to make records.
Of course.
But at the same time, if it's you going through the motions, then I don't really want to see it.
Right.
If it's because it's like, you know what, like Devo, I just heard, is back together with a lot of the original members. Right. They're going to do a one last goodbye tour.
Yeah.
I just saw them perform the Saturday Night Live 50th. It was like just the musicians. They did it at Radio City Music Hall. Again, I'm a huge Devo guy, but I gotta say, they were doing Devo. They were not up there just like humma humma humma. They put on the hats, they put on the suits. They're doing the robot little stances while they're playing. And I would say, if you're a Devo guy, I think you're gonna get a good show. You know what I mean? And now, again, talk about old. I mean, these guys they're not youngsters at all.
Right.
Again, is your motivation to say, let's do this one last ride for us and for the fans.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But again, when an artist knows when to quit, I mean, clearly we've seen it in some of their albums. We've seen it in some of their art.
Yes, yeah.
They usually do not. And then we've seen it in other ways where, Cash is a great example of somebody, he has an idea, his labels don't like his idea at all, and along comes a guy who goes, actually, I love that idea, let's do that. And he has a second career, essentially.
I even think that's an example of like going out on your own terms.
Oh, for sure.
Still going out.
Absolutely.
Right?
Oh, no, he absolutely went out on his own terms. Look, what it comes down to is he wanted to get back to more raw kind of music, the stuff he started with. But the labels were like, no, that doesn't sell. I don't give a shit if it sells. I'm Johnny Cash. I'll do what I want.
Yeah.
And along comes Rick Rubin, who essentially is like, hey, Johnny, wouldn't it be great if you just did you and a guitar? And he's like, well, son of a bitch, that's exactly what I want to do. And he's like, okay, great, let's do it. And you're right, gets a second career and absolutely goes out on his own terms. Of course, when you've been as popular as long as he has and you've had the money, you can go out on your own terms. That's part of it too. Some bands don't get to go out on their own terms,
Yeah, I think like a lot of the, in the kind of like the heavy music doom scene, whatever, there's a lot of older heads, right?
For sure.
And I would, of course, love for them to get their flowers, as we say.
Absolutely.
But, what cost is that going to be? Because, people get older, their health is going to go down, and, attendance isn't what it used to be, and they're still going to be out there. And, of course, that means a lot.
Yeah.
People would still come out
Absolutely.
and play a show and give it their all, because they will be.
Yes.
But this is, this actually kind of makes me think, like, there should be some sort of union for musicians, honestly, because like we could get some fucking healthcare or something, right?
Well, what I think when you're saying this is something that came to my mind as you were saying that is, do you think it diminishes a legacy?
A little bit, yeah, because it's obviously not the same thing. It's not going to be the same.
Right.
Right? It's not the same at all.
No.
And maybe the people on stage don't even get along,
I gotcha.
right? And they're just, again, they're doing it.
Famously, the Stones. I mean, they've plenty of times they were not exactly getting along, and yet, but that tour money kept coming in. So
Yeah.
you know, the Who, I think, is another one. I don't think the Kinks. Shit, they were beating the shit out of each other on stage. So I think the question that comes to my mind with what you were saying is like, does it hurt their legacy? I.e., does Danzig 17 hurt 1 through 4?
No, but if the last thing we get from him is Danzig sings Elvis songs that a lot of people didn't even know were Elvis songs, and then, with the quality of voice and the quality of recording, it's not the same.
No, he's not going out on top.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of something that we'd all like for him
For
to,
sure.
to go out on.
I don't. Yes.
Um,
I'd like to think he's got one more Danzig 1 through 4 in him, and if put with the right producer, maybe he could produce that.
Honestly, like, if anything, if he were to say, I'm going to give it one more round, but this time I'm bringing in Erie, I'm bringing in, John Christ, and if we can somehow get Chuck Biscuits to play drums again,
Sure.
That would be awesome.
Maybe if the fans would love it, for
But
sure.
even Chuck Biscuits,
Yeah.
see, that's a guy
Right.
who could not play drums anymore.
Right.
Didn't force it.
Right.
And just disappeared.
Yeah.
He fell off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
Right. And then we have a David Bowie who records an album as he's probably dying.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a great album,
Yeah, okay.
but I think that's also a rare case of like, okay, that guy went on his own terms. And
Zevon is another one. Warren Zevon.
Warren Zevon, yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, I know it differs from person to person.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah. No. I
but
hear you.
I still think, like, you get to a certain place in your life and you can't. Maybe listen to your body,
Yeah. Again, I wonder if that's the thing. It's like, sometimes the mind is sharper than the body at some point, and that, your mind keeps telling you can do it, even though your body, I'm with you. And especially with music, like staying on top in any way. I mean, I don't mean the charts, but like, not falling behind on what's going on, or, you know what I mean? Like, again, I'm saying you got to be popular, but it's just to say, like, when you're producing the same album that you've made 5 times in a row, you know what I mean? Like, you want an artist to progress.
I think also there's this, like, I don't know if it's outdated necessarily, but this need to stay relevant.
Yeah. I mean, it helps, obviously, but
sure. But you could be a performer that just does the greatest hits, right?
Yeah.
Because we have those bands, right?
Absolutely.
And a lot of them are legacy acts.
They absolutely are.
I mean,
yes. They're
for
not
the
putting
most
out
part,
new records.
right?
Yeah.
Like, I know, like the Maidens and the AC/DCs of the world still put out new music, but they're also seeing a lot of older songs in there.
Even Metallica, when you go see them, they're for the most
exactly.
part, they're playing a lot of the older songs along
Slayer,
with one or two.
the aforementioned
They know what
Slayer.
fans want to hear.
Exactly. So, it kind of just rubs me the wrong way that, like, okay, we're seeing the greatest hits acts come out, the legacy bands, and they're getting older, and it, I can hear the age in their voice.
Yeah, I hear you.
And I can hear the I don't know, the tired in their voice. The tiredness. I don't know.
I mean, that's what I say. Maybe how much of it is, not to get completely Freudian here, but like how much of it is your own dealing with your own mortality and realizing, well, god dang, if they're getting that old, that means I'm getting that old. You know what I mean? How much of it is,
which I know a lot of people can't deal with,
and understandably so. I look, these are all, again, music is so personal in so many ways that I get it. And again, for many of us, especially when they are bands that we got into perhaps when we were younger, Danzig being one of them with us, Ozzy, so on and so forth, these guys were like superheroes.
Yeah.
So to see them, and in some ways, if you will, almost like a family member, right? Like, you remember your grandpa in your head as this guy who could lift the world. And then one day you start to realize he can't do that anymore. And that's a bummer. You hate that. I had a great grandmother that, when I knew her even as a small child. She was a great grandmother, for Christ's sake. It's not she wasn't out in the backyard doing somersaults, but at the same time, she was very active. But lasting memories, unfortunately, are her sitting in an old folks' home, pretty much begging to die and could barely even talk at some point. And it's like, well, that's a horrible memory to have. You know what I mean? But it's also focusing on the other stuff, like you said with like Ozzy. Perfect example. He owes us nothing. It's a bummer what's going on. I wouldn't do it if I were him. I would like to think I'd be one of the voices in the room that go, Ozzy, let's not do this, dude.
Yeah.
But he owes us nothing. And if this is the way he wants to go out, then go for it, pal. It'll be a bummer. I don't want to see it. You know what I mean? But
yeah, I think what, ultimately, and I wasn't necessarily like joking when I said that I think there should be a union or some sort of care for musicians or entertainers, but I know this one might be a little bit more of a controversial example, but like Mike Tyson fighting this last fight. Now, he's got his controversies. I'm not saying I'm for him or anything like that, but he's what, like in his 70s almost?
I would probably
60?
less than that, 50s and 60s.
50, 60? Okay, all right. See, I don't even know, right? But he's an older guy.
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely should not be boxing, right?
Not against a kid who's, half his age.
Half his age, right. And I didn't actually sit through the thing. I kind of went back and listened to, a bunch of clips of it. But he also didn't do much fighing.
Doesn't sound like it, no.
As opposed to getting hit by the one Paul guy.
Yeah.
Right? Logan Paul, I guess.
I think so.
And then he got a big payout.
Yep.
And bam. So, again, I understand maybe some people like the payouts.
Sure.
Which, understandably.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I can't say I'd go 13 rounds with anybody for that many millions.
No. I would certainly contemplate it.
For sure, yeah. I would like to be offered the opportunity
Yes, absolutely.
to say no.
Yes. Sorry, Mike, I won't let you put me in a coma.
Yeah,
no.
But,
But I thank you nonetheless.
Exactly, but still, it's like, when I heard him, doing press for the fight, I could hear the age in his voice.
For sure.
And obviously we all age.
Yeah,
That's not the thing.
No,
right?
I know.
But it's like, man, this is an old dude. This is an older guy, right? Like, you shouldn't be doing this.
I mean, you talk about a sport in which, Muhammad Ali, most people point at,
of course,
the reason he is the way he was, or I should say was he fought longer than he ever should have.
Yeah.
Again, especially in athletes, I think it's, in the end, I think what Tyson did was, I think he saw a payday. I don't think he cared.
Again, the reasons why.
Yeah.
Are
I think ultimately, and you're right. As a person who, again, I am in no way, a shape or form, a huge boxing fan, but I remember growing up watching Mike Tyson destroy guys. It was pretty awesome to see, and to see him go out this way is a little bit like, come on, Mike, what are you doing? You know what I mean?
It's like,
and I'm with you. But I'd be lying to myself to say that I don't understand his motives and why he did it. You know what I mean? But at the same time, like, it's about integrity, right? Like you want it to be like how much does he maybe, and again, I think he has stated he really doesn't give a shit. I think even when he was interviewed, I think there was that famous interview where a little girl asked him about his legacy and he got real existential about life and death. It was like, Jesus Christ, she's 8, Mike, chill out, right? But it's also this thing where you just go like, I don't know. In the end, I'm with you 100%. Right or wrong, I'm with you. I want my heroes to ride off into the sunset and not know, I want Shane to ride off in the sunset and not know that he's been shot and probably dies as he goes over the hill.
Right.
I'm with you 100% there. It's just, I think these people, there's an addiction to fame. There's an addiction to stardom.
Attention.
Yeah. And understandably so. And especially when you have given what somebody like an Aussie, we keep returning to him, he does. He really genuinely loves his fans, and he feeds off of that. He's got famously, anybody who's knows anything about him, he's got very low self-esteem, and he doesn't always feel great about himself. And fans make him feel really good.
Here's another example,
please.
Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
Okay. The guy is a walking corpse.
Yeah.
Right. And he's cranking out movies, whether they're good or bad, up to you.
Yeah.
Right. But
I would say they are getting worse.
exactly, because I don't.
In my personal, I don't mean. I'm not getting into his politics. I'm not getting into anything.
Just the
I just
quality
think
of
the
the
quality of the movies are getting. When you look at something like an Unforgiven, and you look at some of the other stuff he's done, like The Mule or Cry Boy or whatever the hell that was.
Macho.
Yeah, you just go, where did this go?
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's again, you could have ended it with Unforgiven or stayed a director.
Yeah,
Right? 'Cause
yeah.
He's a very good director, apparently, right?
And a lot of it is too it's funny that you bring this up. I've actually read some stuff where he hears the clock ticking. He's also very famously known as a director that he doesn't do a lot of cuts or takes.
Right.
2, 3, we're good. Moving on. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
If people look hard enough in some of his movies, you'll find mistakes.
Oh yeah,
You'll find
for
shit in the background like, wait a minute, why wouldn't he doesn't care. Right, good. Moving
Yeah.
moving on. So when you're also 900 and you think you got 40 more films in you and you do 2 takes,
Yep.
we're just cranking this shit out. Well, is this a meat factory or are we making art?
Which again, the legacy you're leaving behind,
No doubt.
gets a little tarnished.
I think
right?
so, to some degree, for sure.
Because not so much Dirty Harry, but the westerns
I
that
agree.
you put out, great movies.
Absolutely.
right? Even
Yes.
if they were a little weird with the
Sure.
stereotypes. But cool movies nonetheless.
Yes. Changed cinema as we know it in many ways, especially
sure.
the Western.
Yeah. So then when you come from that and then you have the Cry Macho or the other shit he made, it's kind of like, wow, this is the same fucking guy,
Yes. And anyway, and God knows, lots of directors, you're never batting 1,000. You know what I mean? But yeah, I hear you. Look, Spielberg's got some stinkers, but for the most part, he's still making good stuff.
Yeah,
I'm with you. It'd be nice that everybody goes out batting 1,000. But, and look, I would also say, look, when you're making art, you're going to fail. If you're willing to take chances in art, you will fail from time to time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a given.
For sure.
That's a
And
given.
I think the biggest one we could definitely talk about is in like an M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah.
Whatever you think of his movies, that's a podcast unto itself. But remember the hype that this guy came out with. I See Dead People was this phenomenon. He is being called the next Spielberg. Then his next few movies do really, really well, really, really well.
Yeah.
And it feels like, well, everything this guy touches turns to gold. Whoa, not so fast, everybody.
Right.
And all of a sudden, like, I've heard people say, this was after the one where the trees talked to Marky Mark and Airbender. I heard a guy say he was in a theater and it was like, from the mind of M. Night Shyamalan. And you heard people audibly laughing.
Oh, yeah.
So you talk about a guy who's tarnished his legacy to a point that I do think people miss out on some movies he's been a part of that are actually as good as anything he's put out.
For sure. Yeah.
Because they just see the name and go, well, fuck that. I saw that piece of shit one with Marky Mark. I'm not watching his crap.
I think also, especially nowadays, people run a risk of overexposure.
Yes.
Right? Especially, well, not especially because I don't know. I'm not on that level at all, right? When you're an M. Night and you keep putting out stuff just for the sake of being relevant.
Certainly, it feels that way sometimes.
Right.
Yes.
And you can do quality work.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But it's kind of like, no, I'm just going to put this out just because I want to put it out. Because you want to.
I think there's musicians that do that too. It's like,
course.
well, I've recorded it. It must go out to the public. Or maybe not.
Totally.
Maybe not. Maybe that's not the best thing you've ever done. Why don't you put that one to the side, see if you can come up with something better.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
You don't need to put a record out every year.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I would certainly like, I mean, speaking for myself, and
Please.
again, I'm not on any
No,
level on
I-
any of these people.
I know.
But if I'm going to call myself an entertainer, or a musician, there is an end date for me.
Okay.
For me, not just like in the living, in the life,
Yeah, I hate to break it to you, Nick.
everything dies.
We are not eternal.
Right. But at one point I am going to say, okay, this is as far as I can go.
I hear you.
Sell my bases, or no, not even sell them because I'm going to leave them to my nephew. But I'm going to call it quits.
Is that something you feel is going to be, I'm not throwing my fastball artistically, or I feel I've said all that I need to say?
I think as an entertainer, the saying all there is to say
Yeah.
doesn't ever
Okay.
happen.
Understandable.
It's more of a, I know maybe my body can't do it anymore.
Okay.
I know I can't perform the way I used to. Because even now, being blind
Sure.
limits me.
Yeah.
I can't do the things that I used to when I was able to
Sure.
see. But at some point, my hands are going to cramp up a little bit more.
Okay.
I'm not going to be able to lift, not the bass or a guitar, but like my gear
I hear you.
to go to from show to show.
Sure, sure.
Thanks to Aaron here. He, of course, helps me a lot.
I'm just a mule, nothing more.
No. But I'm not going to be able to get around
Sure.
with the ease that maybe I do now.
Absolutely.
Right?
Understandable.
So
Do you think it would be something that maybe then you are just a recording person? And because, like you said, there's no end date to your artistic, the things you want to convey artistically.
it's an option for
Okay.
sure, but like live shows, I've contemplated this in the past
Mm-hmm.
when like, when exactly will that be? That part I don't know, but I know there is a point in time where I'm going to be like, okay, that was my last one.
Okay, interesting.
And
Because I worked with a guy, he was a drummer. He's got a little band. I don't think they play originals.
Yeah.
It's just covers. And they play at, little bars, around where they live. And, probably, I don't know, 5 times a year, if that. He's a drummer, and he just retired from where I work about 3 years ago. So he's definitely in his 60s. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Drummers do not, granted, he's just playing a small little 5-piece. The guy's not in a, death metal band. He's not playing Tool. But still, it's, it's a haul. He's got to haul that shit, put it together, And for him, he'd been in bands all his life, and it was just one of those things where he met up with some friends, and they wanted, hey, look, we could play 4 times a year at these little bars, play all our favorite covers of whatever. He even said there's some songs he doesn't even like, but whatever, it's fun. He sees the enjoyment in it because there is no pressure.
Of course.
I don't need to be artistic. I'm just playing a song that the 50 people in here really enjoy.
Right.
And I love playing drums.
For sure. Like when I was younger,
Please.
I used to, I'm gonna play until I die.
Of course.
And I think every person who plays an instrument says that at one point, But again, realistically, like, no,
Okay.
you're not, because the quality of our playing is gonna go down.
Sure.
And it's maybe at some point it's not gonna be as fulfilling as it used to be.
Yeah.
Which is again another reason of why to stop.
Yeah. Well, as you say this, another example comes to my head. The SNL 50 party opened with, I cannot think of her name. She's, I assume, a very popular singer right now. I don't know. Blonde, white girl. Yeah. I can't, for the life of me, I cannot remember her name. Sorry. No offense to her. She sang with Paul Simon. Long-time SNL guy, he's hosted, he's played, and they sang Homeward Bound together. Well, she sang Homeward Bound. Paul was mumbling through it as far as I'm concerned. I mean, and you talk about, again, not a huge fan, but Paul Simon's one of the great rock voices. I mean, he's got a very distinctive voice, very good voice. Oof, Paul. And now I hear, guess who's going on tour?
Paul Simon.
And I watched that performance and I saw this like a week later. He's going on tour like, oh, God. Really? Okay. Maybe, look, I don't have the greatest ear in the world. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. I can just tell you now, number one, I kept looking for the strings to hold his old ass up as it was. No offense. Someday I hope to be as old as him, let's be honest. It's just to say, whew, he's showing his age.
Yeah.
And then when he sang, it was like, are we sure? So to see him touring, along with what you're saying. Now, he's going to sell out.
Of course.
People are going to want to go see him. And there may even be a sense of, this may be the last time I get to see him.
That's another thing.
I do understand that from a fan perspective.
Yeah.
But is this how you want to remember Paul?
Yeah.
Because this will be your last memory of him when he's out there barely making it through Mrs. Robinson,
Yep.
Again, overall, I'm with you 100%, but I don't know that there's a right answer, and I think that artists are allowed to.
Definitely not.
I know.
It's just something that like.
It's a bummer. It's a real bummer.
It's a bummer that like Ozzy. Because here's another example.
Please.
Willie Nelson.
Yeah, and by the way,
right?
It's weird how this all comes full circle. I believe he went into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame last year or the year before in a chair, singing with people around him. Okay. Now, the guitar, he was still playing the shit out of that thing.
Sure.
But it broke my heart because I'm not the world's biggest Willie fan, but I am certainly musically. But I love Willie Nelson as a human being. I think he's one of the top-notch human beings in the world. But it was a real bummer to see him and be like, oh, we're not going to have Willie much longer. Now, we've also had Willie for almost 90 years now as one of our great singer-songwriters. So, again, he owes us nothing. But you're right.
But
I'd like to think of the guy smoking weed with his 2 ponytails in the back of his bus that runs on corn oil. Not seeing him in a chair, and they got to hold his guitar to him while he plays the shit out of it. And you go, oh, dude.
Stuff like that, just kind of, man, like, what are we doing, right? What are we doing?
It is, and it's why you're in memoriams. They never show the last picture, right?
Exactly.
It's always the youngest picture. Right?
Here's the best picture we could find.
Of course, right? It's just like, and by the way, who wouldn't want that, right? And yeah, I mean, you see it in, especially in athletes. You see this a lot. Football players, especially. Earl Campbell, one of the great running backs for the Oilers for years. Like, there's footage of him where his shirt's being ripped off because he's just running through tackles, literally lowering his head and lifting guys up off the ground as he runs through them. His thighs were the size of Buicks. You know what I mean? He can't stand now. Jim Otto of my beloved Raiders missing a leg, had it chopped off because he had knee problems. They finally just took one leg. And yeah, it hurts because you just go. Talk about superheroes. I mean, these guys are professional athletes.
Right,
Back to the SNL thing. I just saw an interview with Chevy Chase, and you go, ooh, yeah.
I heard about the Chevy thing. Yeah.
Well, they he did not perform on the 50th, and I think that was some of it to try to help him save face a little bit. And it's a bummer because these are the people we grew up on. These are the people that influenced us in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And when we hear these things and we see these things, it does remind us of our own mortality. It is sad to see them in this way. It is life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, you're right. That push and pull of saying, I don't want to see you this way, but it's also not my call. But if I were in your camp, I'm with you. I'm the one dissenting vote in there against Sharon saying, no, we can't let him do this.
No,
we can't.
yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah. Because I don't want the fucking crypt, keeper out there. Right?
Well, and again, the idea that this is supposed to be a one final reunion of, for all intent and purposes, the band that created heavy metal.
Yes.
In their, I believe it's in Birmingham. It's in their hometown.
Yes.
They're gonna go out. The lineup of bands that are playing with them is also a band that will be created with the guy from Smashing Pumpkins and Rage Against the Machine, and I think one other because they're all from Chicago. They're literally like, fuck it, we'll just make our own band so we can play this. Like, that's how important this band is.
Yeah.
And then to find out he can't even sing all the songs. He's only going to do bits of... Well, you're going to dig up Dio and have him do the rest? Is Tony Martin coming in? Like, what do you mean? Like, they're just going to do instrumentals? What does that mean?
Yeah,
if he can't sing them all, then don't do it to him like that.
Right.
Like,
right.
have him make an
Is
appearance.
the desire to see him really that bad that you...
If so, have them make an appearance. Come out, wave, put him in the big throne, and let him say, "I love you," and thank you so much. Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. And then again, as somebody who Ozzy means a lot to me, he really truly does. It is sad to see. Like I said, seeing him on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame really bummed me out. It really did. Not to mention having to listen to that fucking Jelly Roll sing his song. That was Then I really wanted to I did wish Ozzy was dead so he didn't have to sit through it. But it's just it hurts. I won't lie because again we've talked about this in many episodes. We talk about this ourselves. Our connection to music when we're not alone in this. I assume most of the people who probably will be listening to this have that same connection. So to see these people go out in ways that, for lack of a better word, diminishes them, it's a bummer, and it really really sucks. And I wish. And because we love them so much, we only want the best for them.
Yeah.
We want them, yes, if Danzig rode off into the sunset after Danzig 4, it's the Minor Threat thing, right? Minor Threat will never die because they put out one album, one EP. They're both fucking immaculate and amazing. You can't say shit about them.
I'm content with the fact that the Black Flag that I enjoy is no more.
Right. Henry's never coming back.
Henry's not coming back. Dez is not coming back to that version of Flag. Right. I know there have been iterations of a band, and all that stuff.
Right.
But the way it was is not coming back.
Right.
I have the music.
Right.
I enjoyed it in my youth. I can still enjoy it now. Thank you guys.
Yes.
You don't owe me anything else.
I hear.
Right?
Yeah. I just think the other part is, let's be honest, it's money. Sex Pistols, I think I just read, they're going out, not with Johnny Rotten.
With somebody else. Yeah, yeah.
Well, then are you seeing the Sex Pistols?
Right.
The bassist is dead. I think the original tour's with them now.
Yep.
The drummer, whatever. The guitar player, okay, we get it. But if it's not Johnny Rotten out there,
It's not the Sex Pistols.
it's not. I mean, they're the Punk Monkeys. Well, I want to see Davy Jones.
Yeah.
I'm saying, so yeah. But God knows somebody wrote a big check, and they were like, I'm not saying no to that.
Yeah.
I
mean, there again. I know I said this before. Music is nostalgia,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
But how much of that nostalgia do we want back? That it's gonna,
No, I think the majority of people who listen to music are not us. They find what they like it forever, and they rarely find new.
right?
So going and seeing that, whoever is reuniting and doing their thing and isn't the idea that like the Killers went away for like 5 years and then suddenly did reunion concerts, like what the fuck? You can't. How do you call it a reunion? It's like 5 years, guys.
Yeah.
Like Tool's like, are you kidding me? That's an album cycle. What the fuck? It's not a reunion. You know what I mean? Yep. So and then you get to charge more also because it's called a reunion. Of course. The Who touring at this point. I mean, unless you really follow them, you're literally like, well, there's Roger and there's the guitar player, and who are the rest of them? Because I have no idea.
Of Roger Waters, Pink Floyd, going
Yeah.
around and. Out of sheer hatred for David Gilmour, re-recording The Wall, is it? Or
I did not. This is news to me. I did not know this.
He recorded one of the albums,
Really?
and then is going to release that, and is performing it now. And it's like, guy,
Yeah.
come on.
And they're an interesting band in that way where it's like, we can't deny that the brains of the band for the most part is Roger Waters, right? I mean, main songwriter, kind of the leader, de facto leader.
Sure.
But I think most people would say their heart is with David Gilmour.
Of course.
You know what I mean? Ironically, it's strange because he is most of the stuff you love about Pink Floyd is actually more Roger Waters than David Gilmour. And yet, well, it's like
And I get it. They hate each other.
Right.
All that stuff.
Yes, they hate each other, but when that's another weird one. When two bands tour,
Yeah.
right? You get we're Pink Floyd, but we're Floyd Pink, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like two of the members over here and two of the members over there. You know what I mean? Like, wow, talk about destroying your legacy. Talk about, really ruining it. And then as a fan, I have to choose which one to go see.
Well, that's also what happened with Black Flag.
Right. Okay.
Right?
They're
They
another,
had
yes.
Flag, and then they had Off, and then they were at one
Oh,
point.
so Off, I didn't know that. I thought Off was its own thing. Off was.
Off kind of comes from Keith Morris and company kind of being sued by Greg Ginn.
Okay.
So
Well, yeah, you had Caius. Then they did Caius Lives.
Yep.
Then they turned that into Vistacino.
Yep.
And it's like, which by the way, I saw both iterations of that because
yeah.
Josh Homme ain't joining him anytime soon. So fuck you. I want to see Caius, but yeah. And again, now, so are you Caius or are you Vistacino doing a new album, but essentially you're the Caius guys?
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like doing like the multiverse with what Marvel's doing, right? It's like, guys, I can't pay attention. I can, but I also don't want to.
Yeah.
Just give me either the straight storyline or come on, right?
Well, here's one here's an interesting question because you say kind of like, oh God, but thank goodness Celtic Frost didn't call it quits, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I happen to not be a fan of Cold Lake. I don't think it's very good. It's not as bad as in the moment. It was as bad as it was.
Yeah.
If you look back at it now, it's actually not that bad. I do like Vanity Nemesis. I find that album to be very good. According to Mr. Warrior, he scolded me on Twitter about that no, it's not. But okay, that's fine. But you say, he goes on to do Apollyon Sun, and they go away for a while, and then they come back, and it's going to be the Celtic Frost comeback record, and it's like, fingers crossed. Holy shit, Monotheist is amazing.
Yeah.
And talk about restoring your legacy a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And now with Triptychon, I think even more so. And
Sure, yeah,
it's a
yeah.
shame because, him and Martin got back into fighting again and kind of Celtic Frost went to the side. And then unfortunately we lost Martin.
Yeah.
So we'll never get Celtic Frost again. But yeah, sometimes maybe you're right. I mean, it's nice to see a band that did rescue its legacy in some ways. I'm glad that he didn't hang it up.
Of course.
You know?
I mean, that's always nice.
It's rare. It's very rare.
Of course. Yes.
I think that's a tough one too, is when bands go away for, like, I love the Obsessed. I'm a big Wino fan in general.
Yeah.
I love him. The last Obsessed records, they're good, but they're not those classic Obsessed records. It's hard to Faith No More. I'm a huge Faith No More fan. Love Mike Patton. He is my god, as they say. I love the stuff he does. But that last Faith No More record, just sometimes it's hard to recapture the magic. It really truly is. These bands, you had to be there in that moment, and when you go away, try to bring it back again. It just doesn't work. And I get it, because you go, literally, we'll get the band back together and try it out, and it feels good. We're in the studio, but you go, like, what about that lapse in time? Did that take away from certain things?
Yeah. I mean, that's a factor for sure.
For sure, I've certainly seen it. Like I said, Faith No More would probably, as a band that I absolutely love, but their last album, Soul Invictus, 3 times I've maybe listened to it. It just doesn't have it. The magic that those others had, Well, and again, while I miss the Rollins band and I wish he would tour, also, Henry, if you're listening, if you could reissue all your albums, I'd really appreciate that too.
That would be great.
I really, really would. Because I do, for nothing else, I feel like, most of his stuff is not online.
Right.
A few of his albums are on Spotify, but I think there's a generation missing out on Henry Rollins and the Rollins band because of it.
Yeah.
Because finding his CDs are not easy at all. And his records, forget about it. You're paying through the nose because everybody knows there's not many of them.
Yeah.
So I do feel like, like Henry, if you tour or reissue some shit, even if you just did one last one, I'm also glad he sticks to his guns.
I don't think I would want to know that he's touring, but if he he could do a spoken word.
Oh, for sure.
Right? And say, hey, by the way, out in the lobby,
I would be there.
CDs.
I'd be there in a heartbeat. Absolutely. No, I'm with you. Again, and that's the thing. You talk about a guy who kind of reinvented himself too. The spoken word thing is amazing. I love his spoken word stuff.
Yeah.
I really, really do. But I can't lie that I don't want to hear him do stuff, from his albums. I'd want to hear those songs live again. No, I'm with you. It's tricky, and our position as fans can make it trickier.
Yeah, and I know I of course. You're gonna most likely run into me at one of the bands that are older,
Yes.
that are playing the show, being a complete fucking hypocrite,
Yes.
But all that said, what do you folks think?
Yeah, let us know.
Do you want to see your favorites burn out and become corpses on stage, or would you rather see them kind of go out in a blaze of glory and keep some of the integrity they had when they were still around and agile and able-minded?
It'd be nice.
But what have you been listening to?
Lately, again, a lot of stuff. Let's see. Kind of all over the place in some ways. Still on a big Waylon Jennings kick. I found some articles like 5 Waylon Jennings albums that everybody should hear. About 2 of them. But I do. It's just an artist that I've very much wanted to get deep into and have been. Another one I found. They are on Sentient Ruin, I believe. WRAHHA. Good luck with that.
WRAHHA.
Yeah.
Raha?
Sure. I'm going with that. Harbingers of Horrid Cleansing is the name of the album. Only got 3 songs, I guess more of an EP. I don't know how to... A little bit of death metal, a little bit of black metal. Ugly. Just fucking ugly. Well, first of all, it's Sentient Ruin, so it must be Black and Death, because I don't think they release anything else other than Black and Death. It's like a war metal band must be signed to Nuclear War Now. Just ugly and good. The closest I could say, and it's not fair, but a little Celtic Frosty, and that kind of raw, early, especially Morbid Tales Celtic Frost. Very raw sounding. I want to say they're a 3-piece. I could be wrong. Just angry, just in your face, and just really, really cool. I was really, really digging it. Other than that, I've got if I've got a list of anything, it's actually new albums that I want to hear that I haven't got around to just yet. Just this week, Tim Hecker and Wreckmeister Harmonies both put an album out this week.
Nice.
So I've got that on my list to check out. Another band that is on my list to check out is a band called Slow Hole, described as a very heavy, ugly sludge, which is like, well, you just put 3 of my favorite words together. Yeah. Yes, sir, and yes, sir. Other than that, just the usuals. Nothing too new. No, nothing. I have Nile, Meshuggah. I'm starting to fall into a little bit of a Bad Religion hole again. Watched some punk documentary and talking about how much it was kind of 90s punk, and they were talking about how much Suffer meant to them, and I was like, yeah, I need to listen to Suffer again, which of course leads me back to the compilation of all their hits, and But other than that, just the usual. So yourself, how about you?
So I think I mentioned this project before, but if not, it's a project called Lavandula, which is a one-person project from Germany.
Oh, okay.
I think before I might have thought they were from Russia for some reason. Not that the word sounds either German or Russian.
Different country trying to take over the world.
Exactly, yeah. But it's incredibly heavy. It's
right on.
So heavy that I love everything about the production, everything about the tones, the vocals, just like the snappy drums. It's crushing. It's filthy. It's
nice.
Raw.
Nice.
It's incredibly sludgy, doomy. So she, I believe, put out an album recently called Fuck Beauty, Double Ellipsis, Embrace Death.
Right on.
And she had a previous 2-song release, which is actually, the 2 songs are longer than the new album.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 38 minutes as opposed to 30 minutes.
God damn.
Yeah. One song is 22 minutes on the previous one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, fucking gorgeous, fucking just doomy, just goodness.
Right on.
Yeah, it's
right
so
on.
good. I can't stop talking about it. But I will. I've also been listening to this other band called Hamd, which I know I'm pronouncing wrong.
Okay.
Hamnd.
Okay.
Kind of sludgy as well, doomy stuff.
Right on.
Which is kind of what I've been, tilting myself towards nowadays. I don't remember the name of the recent album that they put out, but it's good. I have it on repeat at my home and incredibly satisfying to listen to.
Right on.
Aside from that, I've been re-listening to Sam Hain.
Oh, wow.
Because can't go wrong with Sam Hain.
No.
Right.
The hardest part is just picking which Sam Hain.
All of it.
That's and we've shared this before. I have a CD. I have all their CDs, but I have a CD that I made a burn copy of. Just has all their albums. I can't listen to just one.
Yeah.
As soon as one starts, all I want to hear is all the rest of it.
Thanks to you, I now have a CD like that as well.
You are welcome. And yes, we did say CDs because we are old.
We are definitely old. But yeah, so that's kind of been where I've been musically. What have you been watching?
Let's see. Wow. To be honest, I keep getting stuck in these stupid YouTube rabbit holes. I really do. I keep. Their algorithm is abso-freaking-lutely amazing. It really is the way they I only have to watch like half a video and it's 50 more. Some of it, a lot of them have been fairly political. People essentially, I myself am a liberal when it comes to my politics. So yes, I enjoy watching them kind of take down MAGA people and so on and so forth. And some of that, some Jon Stewart debates, stuff like that. Some new, some old. Watching him tear apart O'Reilly is always fun. Then you start getting into these 6 most disturbing stories on Reddit, and
See, that's the one that you linked me to, and every time I come across those videos, I have to go through
Yeah, I
it,
mean,
you know?
some of them can be very interesting. There's no doubt about it. And I'm a sucker for kind of here's behind the scenes, or here's a weird thing not many people know about. Oh,
Yes,
okay,
yeah.
I'm in. You
Here's
got
some
me.
lost media or something.
Yeah, or
like
just
stuff like that.
I was just watching where it was like one that I got stuck in for a while was times that people have made movies about stuff that was dangerous and got them in trouble. Started with Training Day, went into American Me, and like here's the people who died from making that movie because it pissed off the wrong people.
Yep.
And oh wow, I had no idea. Holy crap, So that kind of stuff, it's just. Then you try to do things where it changes it. I also watched the punk documentary that I was telling you about that turned me back on to listening to Bad Religion. That was pretty cool. It was 90s punk, essentially the explosion of 90s punk. I think the biggest thing I took away from that was just how the honesty of these guys going, but also the punk in them, where like Brett from Punk Bad Religion and Epitaph. Yeah. When he realized how many Offspring albums they were about to sell, and literally he's like, I hate to say it, but I kind of turned to my wife and said, I think we're going to be rich, And it's like, oh my God, the guy from Bad Religion used the rich word, Yep. But, he did become very rich thanks to an Offspring album. That was interesting to watch. Movie-wise, nothing. I keep getting stuck in these stupid YouTube holes.
Interesting.
How about yourself? Yeah, sorry.
I was kind of opposite to you, taking a break from all the political stuff that I normally watch.
I gotcha.
I went into a couple of older movies.
Okay.
I watched Batman Returns.
Okay.
Fucking great movie.
Right on.
This movie, they were supposed to make all the toys and all this stuff.
Right.
I guess McDonald's and company didn't realize how fucking sexual this movie was.
This is the Schumacher one, right?
No, this one is still a Tim Burton movie.
The
one right after
Penguin and Catwoman. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Sorry. Yes.
Innuendo left and right.
Yeah.
Like they're the way the Ice Princess is dressed is incredibly sexy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's such a fun movie. You have Danny DeVito playing the Penguin, and just hamming it up and again saying all the wrong things ever. It's a fun movie.
Oh, yeah,
it's so
no.
fun. You've got the dramatic score by Danny Elfman still.
Yeah.
The kind of gothic noir that Tim Burton brought to the franchise.
Sure. Yeah.
And of course, Michael Keaton.
Yep.
Everyone's favorite Batman.
Yeah.
It's a cool movie.
Also a reuniting of Pee-wee and his love from Pee-wee from the Pee-wee movie. The girl that he falls in love with, the dinosaur.
That's right.
They play the mom and dad of
French girl.
They play the mom and dad of what's his name, Copperpot, which turns into the Penguin.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. That was
also.
Please.
I believe there was a reference in the Penguin series where they. Don't hold me to this.
Okay.
Nobody hold me to this because I might be wrong. But I believe there was a reference in the Penguin series using the tunnels under Gotham City being a reference to that movie.
I think you're right. No, I think,
Right?
yeah, well, I think that thing was full of a ton of Easter eggs that I certainly
I also think there was like a rubber duck at some
I
point.
think I would have to look again, but I think you are onto something. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So like I thought that was pretty damn cool.
Yeah.
So that was one of them. Amy, my wife, and I watched this movie called The Gorge on Apple TV.
Okay.
So everyone beware. Some spoilers. I'm not going to give it completely away. But it is two snipers, one male, one female, one on the supposed Russian side. Even though I believe she's either Hungarian or something else. Maybe
some kind of Slavic Eastern
because
bloc.
her name is like Draza or something.
Right.
And then you have the American guy. I forget who he was though. He was somebody from somewhere, but
Oh, he's in the Whiplash movie. the
Right,
Teller
there you go.
kid.
Yeah.
Teller, and then what's her name with the big eyes from Witch?
There you go. Yes. So, they're in it. They have to kind of keep watch over this gorge, which is in the title of the movie.
Yes.
And of what's in there.
Right.
And holy moly, is it cool? Because
It
it's also kind of a love story.
Yeah, right.
So, because it came out on Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
And, before I mentioned that we had watched the Dread movie.
Right.
But we realized, this is kind of probably something we'd enjoy. So we checked it out. And, yeah, it's awesome.
It looks good.
Sigourney Weaver's in it.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
I think
Okay.
A little underused.
Okay.
But, again, I'm not going to falter because she's awesome.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's such a cool movie. Check it out. It's got tons of action.
Right on.
It's got enough horror for, the horror heads out there. And a little of the kind of conspiratorial stuff happening in there. So that was cool. And then we watched a series called Apple Cider Vinegar.
Okay.
I think on Netflix.
Netflix. Yes. Now that you said it, I've seen it. Well, I didn't watch it, but I saw the advertisement for it.
About an Australian scammer, a real person.
Okay.
Named Belle Gibson.
Okay.
Which, come on, this is Australia running out of names or something, right? But yeah, she's a horrible person. She's absolutely fucking horrible. She scammed a lot of people out of money that was supposed to go to like cancer treatment.
Yes. Okay. Mm-hmm.
It's a. I'm not really giving anything away. It happened in real life.
Right.
And literally, at one point, they say Google it.
Okay.
So you can go look for yourself what it's about, but you're gonna end up hating a lot of the people in it. Some of the people are incredibly disappointing in their decisions. Amy and I at one point were like, this guy's awesome. He's a good person. And then, holy shit, this guy's a piece of shit. What the fuck did you do that for? Why would you fucking do that,
Right.
So we're yelling at the TV left and right. And but it's good. It's entertaining.
Right on.
It's well done. And the main actress, I don't know her name, who spoke with an Australian accent the entire movie, is an American.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool.
Right on.
But yeah, that's kind of what we were into. Aside from the 6 disturbing things found on 4chan and Reddit videos that Aaron linked me to earlier.
They sucker me in. What can I say? Actually, you did remind me with the Netflix thing. We did watch. It's a. My wife and I watched it. I cannot, for the life of me, remember her name. I feel really bad about it. She's the one that was doing the camping vlog with her boyfriend, and then he murdered her essentially while they were out in Utah.
Yeah, Utah. Yeah.
And it was. I remember it, but I'm not stuff like that. I don't want to say I don't. It's not that I don't care. It's like I just know the way the media handles it, and I always feel like, well, at some point somebody will get all the truth and present the truth instead of speculation or Nancy Grace telling us how we're supposed to feel about it.
Right.
So I that's why I kind of enjoy watching those. Very sad all the way around. And just it was tragic is really the word in every sense.
Yeah.
But also just one of those ones where you're like, what do you mean the parents called a lawyer? Why would you call a lawyer unless my wife and I literally sitting there saying to ourselves, if our kids ever murder anybody, they're going to jail. I'm sorry. Daddy's not going down for you. It ain't going to happen, Yeah. But that was, I do enjoy watching true crime to some degree. The thing I liked about it too was something that they did bring up, which I think is fair to bring up. And surprisingly, her father actually talked about was, and now in this country, especially, it's blonde hair, blue eyed girl goes missing. Suddenly the world stops. And when it's people of color, and at that time, the interview they showed was the woman talking about something that, again, I don't think enough people know about Native American women that go missing on a very high rate compared to their population that are never talked about. And to the credit of the father, I had to give it to him. Typical white dude. He was like, at first, that really pissed me off. But then I looked at the numbers and I realized, wow, this is horrific. We can start a foundation that not only helps, my daughter, but helps everybody in this way, which I think is just nice to hear somebody go, wow, I'm upset. Well, let me check in to see what they're saying to see if I should still be upset. Oh, I guess I shouldn't. holy crap. Not,
Right.
well, I'm not going to let facts get in the way of my feelings, you know?
Funny that you mentioned that about the Native
Mm-hmm.
women. There is a movement out there,
Yeah.
and they use the hashtag MMIW, Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women.
Yeah.
That was also brought to light in the last season of True Detective.
Yes.
Right,
And even before that, the movie Wind River
Wind River, yeah.
was one that definitely tackled that in its way. That was I think that brought it to a lot of people's attention also. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's some pretty
It's heavy shit.
heavy stuff
to say the
I'm
least.
pretty
but-
sure we'll do something on True Detective at some point.
Oh,
Because I am gonna go through a rewatch of that at some point soon. But yeah, cool. So thanks for checking it out, guys. Catch you soon. Hey, folks, if you have any comments, questions, or just want to yell at us for any of the takes we've displayed so far, you can email us at therehearsalroompod@gmail.com. All one word together, therehearsalroompod@gmail.com. We're also on Instagram at therehearsalroompod or on Facebook at The Rehearsal Room.